On Michigan's Morning Show with Michael Patrick Shields.
Michael Patrick Shields is on the air.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Thursday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields live from the lobby of Grand Hotel. It's the Detroit Regional Chamber Policy Conference yet again, today and tomorrow. Brought to you this year by Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, Clark Hill, AARP, Family Resource Centers, and Health Partners. We are outside of our American Metal Roof studio, and wouldn't an American Metal Roof look pretty good on Grand Hotel? They could make a huge green roof. Then they would have not only the biggest porch, but the biggest metal roof in the world. Governor Snyder, very present yesterday at the dinners, sort of hobnobbing around, and he actually opened the conference saying Michigan is now going to be a role model for fiscal responsibility, and we should be proud of that. He got a standing ovation, as you might imagine, at Grand Hotel. Loud applause from the mostly business crowd here. And he said he recently signed legislation that killed the Michigan business tax that made him very popular. He called for business and government leaders to get excited about Michigan and create a positive action. And that's going to be necessary to move our state forward. Speaking of moving forward, the United Auto Workers president, Bob King, was here yesterday, too, along with former Congressman Harold Ford Jr., who you see very often on MSNBC. They were part of the agenda just yesterday. So it was a very lively first day. 1,300 people arrived yesterday for the first day of the conference at some stage, making their way on various ferries or airplanes across the Straits of Mackinac. In fact, I was on the way up, and every time I passed a car on 127 or 75, I looked in the window of the other car to see, that's probably somebody I know. And sure enough, one of them was Noel Laporte. So we played Smokey and the Bandit all the way up, and he sort of cleared the way for us to get here on time yesterday. Senate Majority Leader Randy Richardville, actually saw him last night. He's going to join us, I think, tomorrow on the program, the Republican from Monroe. There's a lot of talk about that second Detroit-Windsor bridge, and the governor seems to be behind a public bridge, and Randy Richardville says it's time to either build that bridge or forget the idea. He's tired of talking about it. Got to get it on or off the agenda. And, last year it was the talk here at this conference. It is again now. The Democrat from Detroit, Representative Harvey Santana, is blunt, though. He says if the governor wants another bridge, he's going to have to come to the negotiating table with the Democrats, because if he thinks we're just going to blindly give him support without some community benefits, he's got another thing coming. That's what he says. Now, back to the union for a minute. Daniel Howes this morning in the Detroit News says Michigan's at a historic crossroads because the UAW president was here. The public is looking at us to see whether we've learned from the crisis or whether we go back to the same old way of doing things. That's a UAW president talking like that. And he actually had a good line yesterday, too. He said that Mark Brewer told me this is the closest I would ever come to speaking at a Republican convention. The UAW president King said yesterday, as you know, there are lots of business people here and lots of business leaders and so forth. And so largely, I guess you could presume that a lot of them are Republicans. On the way up, I noticed yesterday that Governor Granholm, who obviously was here for 8 years in a row and even more, sent a Facebook link to an article that said Michigan's single-state recession is definitely over. It's Is Michigan's Economic Recovery Real? Was the name of the article. A one-state recession is over, according to Ken Darga. He's the one who wrote the story there. He's Michigan state demographer. And I guess Governor Granholm is proud of that, and she can probably point to the fact that, it must have been improving at the end of her term. That's what happened to President Bush, too, after he lost to Bill Clinton. I'm talking about George Herbert Walker Bush. The recovery was underway, and then he just didn't get any credit for it. Another Republican stepping into the race for the White House. We all knew this anyway. He's polling as the best chance to win the nomination. Mitt Romney, who spent a lot of time here on Mackinac Island at the governor's residence when his father was the governor of Michigan, is going to make his official announcement today. He's going to aggressively attack President Obama's record and sidestep his singular achievement. When he was the governor of Massachusetts, it was a controversial health care reform bill that, there were some similarities to the one that President Obama pushed through Congress. So he's going to have to play to the base and explain to the conservatives why he did that in Massachusetts and why it was so much like the health care reform they don't like at the national level. Meanwhile, the former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, who was a presidential candidate last time around and said a few weeks ago that he would not be a candidate this time, now saying maybe he could change his mind. He says, everything is still open. I haven't closed any doors. I found long ago that's not a smart thing to do. Could he possibly run? He says, I'm not even thinking about it, but don't rule anything out. And he foresees a broke and battered nominee emerging from the Republican presidential sweepstakes. So he thinks that the primary process is going to be pretty tough. And does he want in or does he want out? We don't know. We'll see. The Congressman Anthony Weiner, why is that funny? I hear people snickering in the background at the mere mention of his name. It's going to be that way for a long time. He's got that bizarre controversy, lots of people talking about it around here. Somebody sent a picture of a crotch to a young woman from his Twitter account. He says his account was hacked and somebody sent it. And Luke Russert, though, from NBC was asking him yesterday, and can you say for sure that's not your crotch? And Mr. Weiner said, I was the victim of a prank, but I can't say with certitude, is the word he used, with certitude, whether that's my body or not. So he says he's 46 years old, married congressman, and he's hired a lawyer to help him sort of sort out what happened. But if you watch any of the interviews he did, and he did a lot of them yesterday, there's a lot of sidestepping going on there, it looks like. We'll see what happens. May's domestic auto sales weren't much to write home about. That's not a surprise, though. We heard that with the supply chain from Japan hurting the Japanese automakers, and actually the supply chain here in the U.S. from the domestics is tough, too, and that's why the auto companies are hiring again, try to crank things back up. They expect a much better June. Indeed. The autobiography of the former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick is now being made available for pre-orders on the internet. It's called Surrendered, and it'll be released next month. He's in a state prison due to the probation violation from that scandal that drove him from office. He's awaiting federal trial on corruption charges, and you can read his take, his autobiography, if you're interested in such a thing. Jace Bolger, who joined us yesterday on the air, the Speaker of the House from Marshall, the Republican, says now that the state's budget's done, and it's done faster than any point in the last several decades, House Republicans are looking to creating jobs. He's got other things he wants to do on his list. And now that the deck's clear, he says he gets a lot of calls from company owners who are asking for help simplifying rules and regulations, adding delays can take months and force people to pack up and leave. So he wants to streamline things for business here in Michigan. Stocks hammered yesterday on Wall Street after new reports indicated the economic recovery may be slowing. The Dow yesterday tumbled down 280 points. The S&P lost 31 and the NASDAQ was down 66. The U.S. is cheering, by the way, the White House, the auto industry, and some people are saying, yeah, that was a nice bailout, but it cost us an awful lot of money. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Sally Kellerman is 74 today. She was the original Hot Lips in the movie MASH. And Joanna Gleason is 61. She was in The Wedding Planner. And hello, Larry. Happy birthday, darlings, to you. We'll get started with the many, many guests we're going to talk to here at the Detroit Regional Chamber Policy Conference in the lobby of Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island. It's Michael Patrick Shields back in a flash.